everyone, it's Mrs. Gonzalez.
And Mrs. McPhail.
Here's today's objective. Use partial products to multiply two-digit numbers.
Alright, I have a problem for you. 70 times 18. Now this is a little too much to do in my head, so we're going to use partial products to go ahead and solve this multiplication problem. I have the steps on my really bright pink post-it note on the side over here, and hopefully you can see it okay, but I'm going to break the problem into place value parts. That's my first step. The second step, we're going to multiply the place values, and the third step is add the parts back together. So if I look at this, I see 70 times 18, and it would be really hard to start with 18 times 7 because I don't know that number, so I'm going to do it the other way around, and I'm going to look at my 70 up here, and I can see that my 7 is to the left of my 0, so I'm going to start with this number up here because zeros are nice and easy to work with, at least numbers that have zeros in them. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go 70 times my tens place down here. So I'm going to break my 18 up. And I have a 1 in my tens place, so that means that I have a tens group that I'm going to be working with. So I'm going to go down here and write my problem as 70 groups of tens. Notice I'm using brackets. And notice that I'm putting the 1 in the tens down here because it's in the tens place. So I broke it into the place value parts. Now let's go ahead and multiply that. I know my basic facts and I can use my extended facts as well. So I know that 7 times 1 would be 7, and if I added my zeros on, that would be 2 zeros. I could also, if I really wanted to do it this way, count 70 10 times or 10 70 times. Bottom line is that this turns out to be 700. Okay, not quite done yet though because I can't forget about my 8 in the ones place. So I'm going to switch colors for you here. Still going to be multiplying by 70, but this time we are going to be multiplying 70 times 8 because we have 8 in the ones place. So same thing, we're going to write this out like this. 70 groups of 8s or 78s. I know that 7 times 8 is 56, and my extended facts make it 560. So I broke the problem into the place value parts. I multiplied the place values. Alright, so we have our two place value parts added back together. Now we just have to add them back together. So I'm going to add a little plus sign. The nice thing about this is everything is lined up in the correct place value here. I have my ones lined up, I have my tens lined up, and I have my hundreds lined up. So let's go ahead and solve this.
Remember to start with your biggest place value, Mrs. McPhail. When you add, you might need that space for all those numbers.
You got it. Thanks for the reminder. So what Mrs. G just reminded us about is that we're going to start with our biggest place value, which would be the hundreds digit, and I have 7 in the hundreds digit and 5 in the hundreds digit. So I know that 700 plus 500 is going to be 1,200. Okay? I'm going to move next to my tens digit, and I see a 0 in the tens digit in the 700 and a 6 in the tens digit in the 560. So I know that 0 plus 60 is going to be 60. And finally, I have zeros in the ones place, so if I add those together, it will be 0. So finally, if we add everything all together, we end up with 1,260.
Yep, that looks good.
All right, let's try another one. It looks so patriotic, don't you think?
It does.
With the red, white, and blue. All right.
You're doing such a good job, Mrs. McPhail. Why don't you model this one too?
Aw, thanks. It's such an honor. All right, here's another one, friends. 90 times 63. My first step is I'm going to break the problem into place value parts. So I like to work with my zeros, so I am going to be taking 90 times my groups of 60 because I have the number 63, and the number 63 is broken up into 60, 10, or 6 tens would be 60, and 3 ones. Alright, so let's go ahead and do 90 groups of 60s. And that would be an awful lot, Mrs. G, to count out
It sure would. I hope
Oh,
you know
God.
your extended facts.
Oh, I do actually. I know that 9 times 6 is equal to 54. And I know to add my little 2 zeros on at the end too.
Good little trick to know.
Good little handy trick. So 5,400. Let's go back and take a look at our ones digit. We have a 3 and a highlighted blue here for you. This time I'm going to take 90 times my groups of 3. So I have 90 in my brackets, groups of 3s. Once again, using those basic facts, 9 times 3 is 27, and I have 1 0 to add on, 270.
Oh, Mrs. McPhail.
Oh, yes.
Be careful when you add because it almost looks like your 2 could be in with the thousands. Make sure that you remember when you're adding it needs to be lined up with the hundreds.
I was trying to be a sneaky squirrel for you, Mrs. Gonzalez. I was hoping you'd catch that.
Well, lucky for you, I caught it.
Ha-ha!
Let's show the students what you do if this happens.
Absolutely. So if you write yours like this, kids, that's just okay. But when we go back to add our parts together, we have to be super careful that we have them all lined up in the right place value. So I am just going to draw an arrow over to the side over here, and let's rewrite it now. So I had 5,400, and now I'm going to add on my 270. Watch how I line this up. I have to start with the hundreds digit because I have 270. So I'm going to put the 2 under the 4, the 7. Sorry, I'll write my 7s like this. I hope that didn't goof you up before. The 7 in the tens place, and then the 0 in the ones place.
Looks good to me.
Looks good. And remember from before, we have to start with our largest place value digit. So this time I have 1 in the thousands. I have 5,400. So I don't have anything else down here to add it with. So I'm just going to bring my 5,000 down. So I have one group of 5,000s. Okay, I'm going to go to my 400s now. I'm sorry, to my hundreds now. And I have one group of 400 and one group of 200. And I know that 400 plus 200 is 600.
Oh, and you remembered to put it in the hundreds place. Good job.
Thank you, I tried. And finally, or I shouldn't say finally, we have to go to our tens place now. Nothing in the tens place in 5,400, but I have a 7 in the tens place for 270, so I'm going to bring my 70 down. It's kind of like a little pattern after a while. They just kind of shrink in from the left to the right.
Oh, it does. I didn't even notice that.
It's kind of cute like that. And then finally our ones place. We don't have any value in the ones place, so that 0 is just going to come down. And then we add everything together, and we're going to go right to left here. 0, 7 in my tens place, a 6 in my hundreds place, my comma. So my total final answer, Mrs. G, is 5,670. That is the product of 90 times 63.
Oh my gosh, I think that's the biggest product you've gotten so far.
Whew, that was kind of a doozy. I hope there's another big one.
Well, we'll find out. We have one more problem to go.
Haha! Do you want to give this a whirl?
Sure, I'll come give that one a try.
Do 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 do. Insert some key music here.
Da 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 da
Look
da
at
da 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 da.
Switchy switch.
Here we go. Okay, step 1. I need to break my problem into parts. Oh, you know what? I suppose I should read the problem. 88 times 40. I got so excited I was jumping right into those steps. I need to do 88 times 40. Step 1, break it into parts. Okay, well, there's a 0 here, and I'm going to look at the number. Our screen just went blank.
I think we're okay.
Okay, I'm going to look at the number right next to the 0, and that's a great place to start. This number is 4, and it's in the tens. I have 4 tens, which is 40. And I want to take that 40 and multiply times each of the 2 top numbers. 88, I like to sometimes write it off to the side like this. It's really made up of 80 plus 8. And now I'm going to take this 4, which is 40, times the 80. So I have 40 80s. Step 2, multiply the place values. 8 times 4 is 32. And I know 1 0 is tens, and another 0 here is tens, and tens make hundreds. And that's represented by writing 2 zeros. So I'm at 3,200. But I'm not done. I've only multiplied this 40 times 80. I still have to do this 40 times 8. So now I'm going to write that down below. 40 eighths, because that other 8 is in the ones place. And I have 8 times 4 is still 32. And I have a 10 there, so 32 tens makes 320. Now I need to add my parts. I'm just going to draw a line, put my plus sign. Starting in the biggest place value, 3 thousandths is 3,000. 2 tens is 20, and 3 tens is 30, and 30. Oh, no, this isn't tens. Did you see what I just did, Mrs. McPhail?
I did. You were trying to be a sneaky squirrel again.
Well, sometimes it's good to just think things through, and you need to talk through it and catch your mistakes, and I'm happy I caught my mistake. It happens sometimes.
We all make mistakes.
This isn't tens. This is hundreds. So I have 200 and 300, which makes 500. Now I'm going to go to my tens. 0 tens and 2 tens is 20. And finally, my ones, I have 0.
I think you went off the page just a little bit.
I went off the page.
I know, we just had so much fun.
We did. There we go. Is the page back?
It's back.
Okay. So now we can add. Let's see, we have 0, 2, 5, and 3. Final answer. Not as big as your last answer, Mrs. McPhail, but this answer is 3,520.
I think it's nice what you said too, Mrs. Gonzalez, because I noticed this time we had the 40 on the bottom, whereas before we had those zeros, those tens numbers on the top, so it's important to remember that you're going to want to start with that number next to the 0.
Oh, good observation.
It keeps
I'm glad
it
you
a leader.
pointed that out.
All right, guys, well, that's all we have for today. Remember those 3 steps to that problem solving.
See you next time. Bye.